Can you believe someone actually told me to sign away my life's work, everything I poured my heart and soul into for years, and just walk away? And then, less than 24 hours later, the very people who pushed for it were practically tearing their hair out, realizing the catastrophic mistake they'd made. Was I wrong to watch them squirm? Was I wrong to hold all the cards when they finally came crawling back? I want to know what you would have done in my position, because honestly, looking back, I still feel a mix of triumph and a lingering bitterness. Let me take you back to the beginning, to a time when my life was simpler, filled with the hopeful naivete of a young entrepreneur. I started my company, Innovate Solutions, right out of college. It wasn't some grand tech startup. It was a small, focused firm specializing in bespoke software development for niche markets. Think highly specific inventory management systems for obscure industries, or custom CRM solutions for businesses with unique client interaction models. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and I was good at it. I built it from the ground up, literally from my garage, fueled by ramen noodles and an unwavering belief in my vision. For the first 5 years, it was just me, then a small team of 3, then 10. We grew slowly, organically, focusing on quality and client satisfaction above all else. Our reputation became our greatest asset. We didn't advertise much. Our work spoke for itself, and referrals kept us busy. Fast forward 10 years, and Innovate Solutions was a thriving, respected name in its specific corner of the market. We had around 50 employees, a beautiful office space, and a steady stream of high-value projects. I was incredibly proud of what we had achieved. We weren't a Silicon Valley unicorn, but we were profitable, stable, and everyone who worked for me was treated like family. I believed in fair wages, excellent benefits, and a supportive work environment. My employees were happy, and that translated into fantastic work. The trouble started, as it often does, with expansion. A few years prior, to fuel a specific growth initiative into a new, adjacent market, I made the decision to bring in outside investment. It wasn't a massive amount, but it meant giving up a minority stake in the company and, more significantly, bringing on a board of directors. Most of the initial board members were reasonable people, offering valuable insights. But over time, as some retired and others moved on, the composition of the board shifted. Slowly, subtly, the focus began to change from sustainable growth and employee well-being to aggressive cost cutting and maximizing short-term profits. One particular board member, a woman named Victoria Sterling, became the loudest voice in this new direction. Victoria was a formidable presence, sharp, impeccably dressed, and with an intimidating resume filled with corporate takeovers and aggressive restructuring. She joined the board about 2 years before this whole ordeal, and from day one, her philosophy clashed with mine. While I championed innovation, quality, and a people-first approach, Victoria preached efficiency, scalability, and ruthless optimization. She saw my company, my baby, as a collection of assets to be leveraged, not a living, breathing entity built on relationships and trust. Our clashes were frequent, often behind closed doors, but increasingly in public board meetings. She criticized what she called our generous employee benefits, our slow project timelines, and my reluctance to outsource key functions to cheaper, overseas contractors. I argued fiercely, explaining that our retention rates were sky-high precisely asterisk because asterisk of our benefits, that our slow timelines were a result of meticulous quality control, and that our specialized projects required the expertise of our in-house team. She would just smile, a cold, unyielding smile, and say, "The market doesn't care about sentiment, John. It cares about ROI." The breaking point came with a new project, our largest and most complex to date. It was a massive undertaking for a global logistics company, designing a proprietary AI-driven supply chain optimization system. This project had the potential to elevate Innovate solutions to a whole new level, opening doors to even larger clients. I had personally overseen the proposal, assembled our dream team for it, and poured countless hours into its initial architecture. The client was thrilled. They saw our vision and trusted our expertise. This project code, named Project Chimera, was my magnum opus. Victoria, however, saw it as an opportunity to implement her vision for the company. She argued that we were dedicating too many senior resources to it, that we should instead leverage a cheaper, less experienced team, or even outsource portions of it. I explained vehemently that Project Chimera's success hinged on the unparalleled expertise and tight integration of our Asterisk team. Any compromise on that front would jeopardize the entire project, and potentially our reputation. But Victoria had been subtly undermining my authority for months, planting seeds of doubt among other board members, suggesting I was too emotionally attached to the company to make hard business decisions. Things escalated rapidly. At a particularly tense board meeting, Victoria presented a motion. Her proposal was to radically restructure the company, effectively stripping me of my operational control over Project Chimera, and installing one of her preferred and less experienced managers to oversee it with a mandate to implement her cost-cutting measures. She also suggested that my role be reduced to a largely symbolic Chief Visionary Officer, with no real executive power. It was a clear attempt to sideline me, to take my creation and reshape it in her image. I fought with everything I had. I presented detailed financial projections, testimonials from clients, and arguments about the intangible value of our company culture. I reminded them of the risks associated with tampering with Project Chimera, but Victoria had done her homework. She had swayed enough of the board. When the vote came, it was 4-3 against me. I was devastated, but not entirely surprised. I saw the writing on the wall. They wanted me out, or at least neutered. The next day, Victoria called me into her office. She had a stack of papers on her desk. "John," she began, her voice devoid of any warmth, "the board has decided that for the future of Innovate Solutions, a change in leadership is necessary. We appreciate your foundational work, but the company needs to evolve. We're offering you a severance package and an agreement to sell your remaining shares back to the company at a fair market value. Sign these documents, and you can walk away with dignity. Your legacy will be remembered, but the path forward is clear." She slid the papers across the polished mahogany. It was a non-compete clause, an NDA, and a complete relinquishment of all my intellectual property rights related to Innovate Solutions, including all current projects like Chimera. The fair market value was insultingly low, barely a fraction of what I knew my shares were truly worth, especially with Project Chimera on the horizon. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about selling shares. It was about erasing me from my own story. It was about taking everything I had built, everything I had poured my life into, and telling me to sign and walk away. Just like that, I looked at her, then at the papers, then back at her. A strange calm washed over me, a clarity born of absolute betrayal. She thought she had me trapped. She thought I would simply roll over. But what she didn't know was that I had a secret. A very big, very technical secret. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. They wanted me to sign away my future and my past. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have signed, taken the money, and tried to move on? Or would you have found a way to fight back? I didn't sign, not then. I stood up, looked Victoria directly in the eye, and said, "Victoria, you truly underestimate me. I built this company from nothing. I know every line of code, every system, every nuance. You think you can just take it from me?" She just scoffed. "John, you're an engineer, not a businessman. The board has spoken. Don't make this harder than it has to be." I picked up the papers, folded them neatly, and put them back on her desk. "I'll consider it," I said, a lie so smooth it almost surprised me. "But I'll need to review these with my lawyer." I walked out, leaving her smug expression behind me. My mind was racing, not with panic, but with a cold, calculated fury. You see, for years, as a safeguard against potential hostile takeovers or bad actors, I had implemented a subtle, almost invisible backdoor into the core architecture of our most critical projects. It wasn't malicious, it was a kill switch, designed to protect our intellectual property from being stolen or misused, should the company ever fall into truly unethical hands. It was a series of encrypted protocols, a deep-level integration within the very operating system of our bespoke software that allowed me, and only me, to remotely deactivate critical functionalities without leaving a trace. It was the digital equivalent of a self-destruct mechanism, a final failsafe. I never, ever thought I would have to use it, but Victoria Sterling had just pushed me to that point. The moment I got home, I went into my home office. I didn't sleep that night. I spent hours meticulously reviewing the contract, noting every single clause, every attempt to legally bind me. Then I turned to my computer. I still had administrative access to all of Innovate Solutions' systems. They hadn't revoked it yet, likely assuming I would simply sign and disappear. That was their first mistake. I didn't do anything overtly destructive. Instead, I carefully modified the kill switch protocols for Project Chimera. I didn't activate it yet, but I refined it, made it more potent, and linked it to a time-delayed trigger. If certain administrative credentials mine were removed from the system without a specific, encrypted sequence of commands being entered within a narrow time frame, Project Chimera's core functionality would cease to operate. It wouldn't crash the system. It would simply enter a dormant state, unrecoverable without my intervention. The system would appear to be functioning, but it wouldn't do anything. It would be a very expensive, very sophisticated paperweight. I also made sure that any attempt to analyze or bypass this mechanism would trigger the dormancy protocol immediately. It was elegant, it was untraceable, and it was devastatingly effective. The next morning, I showed up at the office as usual. I had an appointment with my lawyer later that day, but first, I walked straight into Victoria's office. She was on the phone, looking pleased with herself. She ended the call and looked at me expectantly. "So, John, have you had a change of heart?" I put a single, signed piece of paper on her desk. It wasn't the severance agreement. It was my formal resignation, effective immediately, citing irreconcilable differences in corporate vision and ethical practices. I also explicitly stated that I was reserving all rights to any intellectual property I personally developed prior to their investment, a clause I knew they would fight, but it was a crucial, tactical move. "I'm not signing your severance package, Victoria," I said calmly. "I'm resigning, and I'm walking away from everything I built, as you wished. Have a nice day." I turned and walked out, leaving her stunned, holding my one-sentence resignation. I cleared out my personal effects from my office in under an hour. ignoring the confused glances of my former colleagues. I said goodbye to a few trusted friends, telling them only that it was time for me to move on. I left the building, got into my car, and drove away, not looking back. The entire drive home, I felt an unsettling mix of relief and a churning pit of anxiety. Had I just committed corporate suicide? Or had I laid the perfect trap? The trigger for my kill switch was tied to the revocation of my primary system administrator credentials. I knew they would revoke them the moment my resignation was processed. It was standard procedure. What they didn't know was that the trigger was now armed. Less than 24 hours later, my phone started ringing. It was a number I didn't recognize, then another, then another. Finally, my old assistant, Sarah, called, her voice frantic. "John, thank God. You need to call the board immediately. Something's gone terribly wrong with Chimera." I feigned ignorance. "Sarah, what are you talking about? I don't work there anymore." "I know, but it's just stopped. The whole system. We can't access anything. The client is freaking out. She's absolutely livid, but she's also panicking." I suppressed a smile. "I'm sorry to hear that, Sarah, but as I said, I'm out of the loop." Soon after, Victoria herself called. Her voice, usually so composed, was laced with an almost hysterical desperation. "John, what did you do? Project Chimera is dead. It's just inert. We can't get it to respond. Our engineers can't even tell what's wrong. The client is threatening legal action. This is a catastrophe." "Victoria," I said, my voice calm and even, "I simply resigned. As you suggested, I walked away. Perhaps you should ask your new efficient team to fix it." "This isn't funny, John. You know this system better than anyone. You have to help us." "Help you?" I chuckled, a dark, satisfying sound. "You told me to sign and walk away. You stripped me of my position, undervalued my contributions, and tried to erase me from my own company. And now you expect me to just waltz back in and fix your mess. We'll pay you," she practically shrieked. "Whatever you want, just fix it. The entire company's reputation is on the line. My price," I said, cutting her off, "is not just money, Victoria. It's control, it's respect, and it's an acknowledgement of what you tried to do." For the next few hours, I played hardball. I let them sweat. I let the board members, one by one, call me, each one increasingly desperate. They had tried everything. Their internal teams, external consultants, no one could figure out why Project Chimera had simply ceased to function. The project was too complex, too deeply intertwined with my unique architectural approach. They had taken away the architect, and now the building was crumbling. Finally, the chairman of the board, a more reasonable man who had been outvoted in the earlier decision, called me. His tone was contrite. "John, we made a terrible mistake. Victoria, she overstepped. We realize now the invaluable role you played. We need you. Innovate Solutions needs you." I laid out my terms, and they were extensive. First, full reinstatement as CEO, with absolute operational control, especially over Project Chimera. Second, Victoria Sterling's immediate removal from the board and termination from any advisory role. Third, a renegotiation of my shares at a true, significantly higher market value, plus a substantial bonus for fixing the current crisis. Fourth, a written apology from the board, acknowledging their error and my contributions. And fifth, a commitment to my original vision for employee welfare and innovation. I wanted my company back on my terms. There was a long silence on the other end, then a weary sigh. We accept, John, all of it. Just please come back. Our client is threatening to pull out entirely." I returned to Innovate Solutions the very next day. Victoria was gone. Her office was empty. The board members, looking pale and haggard, held an emergency meeting where they formally ratified my return and agreed to all my demands. The look on their faces, the sheer relief mixed with embarrassment, was almost comical. I walked into the Project Chimera control room. My former team, looking utterly defeated, greeted me with a mixture of hope and skepticism. I sat down at a console, logged in, and executed the precise, encrypted sequence of commands that I had built. Within minutes, the system lights flickered, data streams began to flow, and Project Chimera roared back to life. A collective gasp of relief, then a cheer, erupted from the team. The client, who had been on a frantic conference call, was immediately notified, and the crisis was averted. The aftermath was profound. Innovate Solutions thrived under my renewed leadership. Project Chimera was a resounding success, solidifying our reputation and bringing in even more lucrative contracts. My employees, witnessing the entire saga, were more loyal than ever. The board, chastened by their near-catastrophic error, became far more supportive of my vision. Victoria Sterling faded into corporate obscurity. I heard she struggled to find another high-profile position after word got around about the Innovate Solutions fiasco. A small part of me felt a grim satisfaction at her downfall. She thought she could take what I built and dismiss me so easily. She learned the hard way that sometimes the true value of a company isn't just in its assets, but in the mind and heart of the person who created it. So, that's my story. It was a harrowing experience, but one that ultimately strengthened me and my company. If you've ever faced betrayal or had to fight for what you believe in, I hope you found some resonance in my journey. Like this video if you were on my side, subscribe for more stories like this, and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did I do the right thing, or was I too harsh? Let me know. I'll see you all in the next story.